Welcome
Game
to
over.
RePlay Magazine's podcast, where we'll dive into the legends and interesting stories within the world of what we call coin-op entertainment. That's games and amusement machines you find in arcades, fun centers, bars, restaurants, and beyond. RePlay's covered this business for 50 years and is joining forces with industry veteran and former association president Randy Chilton. He is Chief Revenue Officer for National Entertainment Network, owned by Japanese amusement giant Kittleton Genda. And now, here's Randy and this month's RePlay podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the RePlay podcast. Today, we are excited to sit down with Rich Babich, Colorado Game Exchange, Denver, Colorado, my neighbor. He's a hard man to catch up to. We found him on a cruise ship in Bora Bora. I think that's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But we figured out the time change. We had a wonderful chat. He's an inductee into the AAMA Hall of Fame. And as you'll hear from this podcast, deservedly so, contributed to the industry greatly over his 50 years. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast and comment, like it, let us know what you think. Thank you. Rich Babich, thank you for taking the time. And this is a first. This is a first for this project. Would you tell the people, where the heck are you? And we're going to do this backwards. Where are you and what are you doing? This looks fun.
Well, I am sitting in my room, my suite on a Seabourn Sojourn cruise ship. And we are anchored maybe a 5-minute tender ride from Bora Bora. And as I look out my window, I see spitting a little rain and some clouds, and I see some boats with people still enjoying pretty blue water.
And if you weren't on this podcast with me at 8 o'clock in the morning in Bora Bora, what would you be doing right now? Sleeping?
Well, when we're done, when we're done, I'm going to put a pair of shoes on, and then I'm going to get in a tender, and I'll go into town. And I'll walk the town for a couple hours, seeing what I see. And there's a church that looks interesting to me from here. There's some fishing areas. It looks like, see what the people are doing. It's not an English-speaking place, so I don't think I'll meet a lot of people and have many conversations. But I love looking at the architecture, and I just love interacting with different cultures and seeing what they're about.
And if you don't mind sharing, this is not just your ordinary 7-day cruise you're on.
Yeah, it's not. So Bev and I have been married 50 years. It was 50 years last June 8th, actually.
Congratulations.
And the gift we decided to give ourselves was a world cruise. So we're on this for 129 days on the ship.
Ah.
We started in... it's a little bizarre. We started in LA and we finish in Vancouver in the middle of May, which means, which is about 4.5 months. And we get to see, we've been to Honolulu already. Now we're in Bora Bora. We're going to do Polynesian area for a few days. Then we eventually meander through some more islands and little stops, and we end up spending about 2 weeks in New Zealand, circumventing it, making 9 stops in New Zealand, and then scoot over to Australia and circumvent Australia for another 9 stops. And then we do some South Korea and Hong Kong and that kind of stuff, head over to the Philippines, and then head over to Japan, 8 stops in Japan. Come back across the Pacific, 8 stops in Alaska, come down and get off in Vancouver.
All right, let's talk about the business a little bit. You are owner, founder, Game Exchange in Colorado, that beautiful showroom that is 20 minutes from me, and I've never been in it. I need to be open about that embarrassing factoid.
Shame on you, Randy. You've only been invited 10 or 20 times.
I know. I'm not particularly proud of that. How are things at the Game Exchange of Colorado today in the industry? How you work 3 hours every morning? How are things going? How do you see this business today?
Well, I've been in the business almost 50 years now, 47, 48 years on my own, I think. And The only thing the only constant is that it's constantly evolving. Our industry used to be heavily supplied by the Japanese. Today, we're really more worldwide and far more American companies than an American development of product. If I look at who my most important suppliers are, two of the top 4 or 5 for certain would be Raw Thrills and Stern Pinball, both very made in America companies, engineering based in the United States. And Chicago's become a real hub for that kind of work in our industry. Today, my business is about half commercial to family entertainment centers and to operators of amusement devices and vending, and about half to homes. Mm-hmm. And I believe I'm the only person in the industry that has, in the distribution side of the industry anyhow, that has decided to focus that much of our business in the retail side. The retail margins are better. It's a niche market that particularly my son JJ has developed very well in building relationships within that community. So it's not, we do sell an awful lot of products into homes in Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico, but we also sell an awful lot of pinball machines to enthusiasts all over the United States. We're one of the largest dealers of pinballs in North America.
And is that kind of the business going forward, that model, or do you have any things you can share with us on the horizon, or you're going to invent a new game like you did back in the day with your hot seat? I might not be saying that correctly, but that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, so I've done a little of everything. I have been a small manufacturer. We tied up with an engineer and developed the first dual axle motion simulator, and that was the hot seat. Didn't really understand what we had. It was a little too early for the industry, but we built and sold 100 of them, and it was quite an experience taking a good sized product to a trade show and understanding what it is to set that up and what it takes to support that kind of product, and visiting with other dealers. And the very first units went into Circus in Las Vegas. And I remember talking with the engineer that developed the axis for us, saying, you realize that we're going to fail or succeed based on the volume that Circus has, and can this withstand that? And his name was Howard Latofsky, and he just looked me in the eye and goes, not gonna be a problem. And he was right. I think we did break one weld over the years, but that was just a poor job of welding a piece from a fabricator. But learned how to do that. Learned how to enlist other people to help you sell things. Learned how to support it. But manufacturing is its own niche, and I certainly respect those that do that in a big way. Our niche is relationships, and so it's relationships with commercial customers and relationships with home people. We sell a lot of product to athletes, so a lot of products to NBA players or whatnot. And one of the interesting factoids about sports is players don't stay in the same place forever. And because I might have a relationship with some basketball players in Denver, that will become a relationship later with basketball players in Charlotte or for the Knicks or for Dallas. And take care of your customers, they'll take care of you. So it's all good.
Like, being in one of the strongest sports markets in the nation, and you're catering to these players, do you have a story or two that just comes to your mind that is pretty people would be interested in, about people you've engaged with, or how that engagement worked? Or
Well, you have to kind of respect their privacy.
Yeah,
But
fair.
you do learn a whole other side of these people as human beings and their passion. I remember when Dikembe Mutombo was the center for the Denver Nuggets, and well, he's passed, so he was a giant of a man. I mean, just 7 foot something. And we were visiting one day, and I was introducing him to my wife, and he's just as cordial and friendly and whatnot as can be. And he reaches out to shake my wife's hand, and her eyes get huge because he's not sure how hard he's going to squeeze it or what's going to take place. But he gently does a handshake, and his fingers are so long they literally wrap all the way around her hand. And then we're carrying a conversation on with Deke, and English isn't his first language, but he speaks it very well. But he speaks quickly, so he's speaking in kind of a staccato voice carrying this conversation on. And Bev says, "Dikembe, slow down a little bit. That staccato is a little hard to follow." And he looks at her and he goes, "Oh, not your best language? How about Swahili? And how about Spanish?" And starts going on and on and on. Deke spoke 9 languages fluently and could carry a conversation, from one to the other to the other. But there's a guy that's a good example of the good hearts that really are in athletics. Deke made real money because sports players that are the top of the game do make good money, at least by those days standards. He turns around and builds a hospital in his home town, pays for the entire hospital, and then supported the staff because there wasn't enough money to pay the doctors what needed to be paid, and did that for 20, 30 years. Charity work is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, no, that's pretty special, and that's a great story. Thanks for sharing it with me. All right, you got 2 kids, JJ and Kai, and JJ's in the business. You're right. I am a Sigma Chi along with a few other people in this industry. And you were what?
Yep. I'm a Theta Chi.
You're a Theta Chi. At where?
Ohio State University.
Oh, you're an Ohio State guy. Okay, that's new information.
Yeah. And that was before it was the Ohio State University. It was just Ohio State when we were there.
Yeah, I've never understood that, but I got a lot of very passionate Ohio State friends in this industry.
Yes, the Schaefer group is very passionate about Ohio State for sure.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So today it's JJ's in the business. How does, hey, we're an industry of family-owned business, myself included. I'm always intrigued by how it works and how you've made it work specifically. I know in a lot of families in this industry, sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. What can you share with us about the secret to running a successful family business?
I listened to Jim Stanfield's podcast with you, and I'm going to have to say Jim nails it. The answer to that question. It is about communication and openness and understanding that there's different points of view, and everybody's entitled to those points of view, and not just allowing them to express them, but you have to be able to listen and understand and exercise those things. It's not perfect, for sure, and it has its moments that are less than perfect. Mm-hmm. But you never doubt the commitment and the sincerity and the honesty of what's taking place. So that's a big asset, to know that there's not a outside agenda in the conversations. JJ works very hard. He's my number 2. He's pretty much running the company at this point. I still am involved with relationships with factories and whatnot. I own some properties that I still manage, but he runs the day-to-day operations of the business for sure.
Well, I think that's the backbone of this business. I just love when appears to be going well. So, and the burden of that always falls on the founder, you, of making that work. So, well done.
Yeah, every once in a while you have to have a heart to heart, and you know, I think, well, we've been doing this for a lot of years together now. It's been wow, 20 some years that he's been very, very active in it. He was emptying trash cans and sweeping floors when he was 9 or 10, so he's been doing it for 35 years. But sometimes you just have to look somebody in the eye and go, hey, we need to have a boss employee conversation, not a father son conversation here for a minute. So let's take those hats off and sit down and talk about what we're not getting done here and figure out how we're going to get it done. And as long as you, at least for me, as long as I prefaced it with that, I felt I could say anything I needed to say. And it's no longer personal. It's now just business. And then you go back and put your family hat back on it. Go back down the road.
Now, your dad, is that his name?
Yes.
Was he in the business? Tell me about that.
He was not. He was not. I guess one of the things I've accomplished is it's a self-made business. We moved to Denver in 1975. I was working for a small arcade company. We were opening funway freeways across the country. I was learning a whole lot about the industry. They gave a 23-year-old kid a whole lot of responsibility very quickly. So I created all the cash controls for the company and all the operating manuals, and was hiring and firing managers and getting people trained and getting stores open and running and troubleshooting, finding the thieves and getting rid of them and blah, blah, blah. So you learn all about it. And I just kind of decided one day, certainly over a period of time, that if I'm going to be traveling for business, and we all do, but if I'm going to be traveling and working this hard, I want to do it for myself. So I walked away from that, started a little route, which they actually helped me start. They gave me some of the equipment and financed it for me so that I could get some stuff out on the street. The route was called Automated Amusements. We grew that from zero to the largest independent operator in Colorado over a period of about, I think we did that. Took us about 10 years to build it, maybe a little longer. Operated it longer than that. Became a thorn in the side of the largest guys in town, which were a national company, TD Rowe, Terry Davis's company. And they finally called me one day and said, Rich, we're tired of fighting with you. And we think we want to own you more than you want to own it. And I said, I don't know, it's passion. You guys listen to the offer, talk to your family, think about it. And they offered me the largest weekly multiplier that they had ever offered anybody. And, it was an all cash deal. And I looked at that and I said, okay, maybe it's time to get out of that business. By then I had started the distributing company too. We were doing both. And it actually bothered me. Well, operating and distributing are two very different mindsets, Randy. When you're operating, you're territorial. You're building a network of customers, and you are really protective of that network. And you certainly don't want anything bad happen to them, but you also don't want anybody else to get in your mess kit, right? You want that to yourself. When you're in the distribution business, you're really building a team of businessmen that you can help support and let them grow their business. So those two different mindsets were conflict to me. People say, well, you shouldn't be operating and selling because you're competing with your customers. And while that's true, the big struggle for me was the different mindsets of being territorial or being team building. And I finally chose to become just team building. We did that. we ran some arcades on our own too. We still own one arcade. I always joke about it. It's called Nickel Play. And I joke about the arcade business because I say, I proved you can make a living a quarter at a time in the mall arcade business. And I ran, 20 some stores for Funway Freeway. And then I ran several mall arcades for myself. And I said, I just got to prove it can be done on a nickel at a time instead of a quarter at a time. So we started looking at the nickel arcades that were open in a couple of different cities. There were some in Salt Lake City and some in California, Northern California, and looked at their business models and said, they're not doing it right, but they're doing it and succeeding. So we refined the concept a little bit. It's a more complicated concept than you first think. But we learned how to develop party business and group sales and school groups, and worked very closely with the after school programs and the YMCAs, and prove that you can make just as much money or more at a nickel at a time as you can at a quarter at a time. We earn as much per square foot in those stores as I ever did in the mall arcade business.
Right.
People just stay longer, so somebody comes in and they're going to spend, well, these are old numbers because it's how it used to be in the mall business, but it used to be the average person came into a mall arcade and they'd spend $8 or $9 a person. And they'd be in the arcade for 20 or 25 minutes. I'm sure with Dave and Buster's and the big places, those numbers are different today, but that's what it was, in the 80s. When we started doing nickel play, the average spend by a customer was $9.22. And the average time in the store was just under 2 hours. So all they were doing was staying longer, still spending the same amount of money.
And that's here in Denver somewhere?
Yes, it's in Aurora. I had 8 stores running at one time. I'm down to 1 store, and it's just fun. It just does.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's fun. I have a great manager that just runs it for me too.
Now, as you look back at the career and your start in the Funway arcades, do you look back and go, was this all somewhat scripted, or it just kind of fell into place? Or do you look back on it and go, man, that's a crazy ride? How do you look back on the last 50 years of doing this?
Yeah, so I would describe myself as a survivor. We've watched lots of people come and go in the industry, and we've watched some family businesses get out of the family business, and some get rolled up either, in Betson's expansion or ABS's expansion or Schaefer's expansion. We've just morphed, as we see opportunities, we chase them. As we see the competitive landscape, we pick and choose where we want to fight for business. It was very clear 10 years ago or 12 years ago that the industry was going to morph into large family entertainment centers, and that those were huge opportunities for a distributor to sell equipment because, there are $1 million, $2 million, $3 million worth of equipment from our industry. We looked at that and played in that pond for a little while, and still play in that pond in Colorado. But we looked at that pond nationwide, and it was very clear very early that unless you were going to do a tremendous volume with it, you weren't going to be able to compete. There's enough back end money paid by the factories if you hit certain numbers that they want you to hit. And I guess Moss should be included in that number too. The 4 big guys, ABS, Schaefer, Moss, and Betson, are able to hit those numbers, are able to get the back end money, where a single office guy like myself, who's really focusing more on service and support than on that volume, can't possibly sell at the same margins and compete. Not to mention the size of team it takes to set up that much equipment and blah, blah, and be able to do that simultaneously in different locations. So we chose not to compete in that business. I certainly respect those guys that have and what it takes and their success and the size of those. But instead, that's why we looked for niches and decided that selling equipment to people's homes and being the best baddest in the pinball business were probably niches that had a little better margin for us, and that we could focus on and serve properly. And we probably sell as many new pinballs as those four guys combined do. I mean, it's amazing the size of that market.
Yeah.
For us.
To residential mostly, or operators as well.
Well, so we've also mostly residential, but there's a niche in commercial called the barcade business.
Oh yeah.
And we have helped develop that business. We're very close to every one of those owners. We know them well, and quite a few of those people were pinball enthusiasts who had 8 or 10 games in their home. And the wife said, you can't have 11 or 12. You go figure out somewhere to go do something with some of these if you want to keep buying machines. So they decided to open a barcade, or they decided to go to a brewery. Somebody was operating a brewery and convinced them to morph that into a barcade and became their partner, for that part of the business. Showed these people how to operate, showed them how to control the financial side of it, how to evaluate their money. And we've developed a very loyal following of those customers across the country. You help somebody build their business, most of them are pretty loyal back to you.
Yes, they are. Oh, that's a very interesting part of your business. I mean, having did this with Gary Stern and heard his stories and the ebbs and flows of the industries and how you've prospered in that category. That's taken some patience because it hasn't always been the case. But good for you. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, last year you got the biggest honor this industry has to offer. You were in the AAMA, inducted into the AAMA Hall of Fame. You've worked in the on the association for decades, and I'm an AMOA guy, but I was always aware of you on the AAMA side. So, well, first of all, congratulations. That's a big deal. That's a pretty exclusive club that you now belong to. And candidly, when we do this, that's the first list we started looking at. Like, okay, well, these are people that have made their mark in the industry. So, how was that experience for you? Well, tell me about that first. The whole induction ceremony.
Well, it's a tremendous honor. There's a little more history to that. Really, Rick Kirby and I were looking around, I guess it was 7 years ago or so, at other industries, at the park industry and at the bowling industry, and realized that each of these industries has their own Hall of Fame. And there was not a Hall of Fame for our industry. So Ricky and I, both longtime AAMA directors, went to the board and said, look, we think the industry should have a Hall of Fame, and helped create that vision and fine tune that to make it what it is today. Of course, because we opened our mouth and tried to talk people into it, we became the first co-chairs of the Hall of Fame committee. So we got to create with a few more people for sure, but we got to create a document that was the guiding light for what the Hall of Fame was going to be, and what the selection process was going to be, and what the nominating process was going to be, and what the criteria for entering the Hall of Fame. I still co-chair that, and I think, by the way, that I probably don't necessarily fit all of those qualifications to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm very honored, but I think the committee lost its mind when it decided to nominate me and put me in, and they did it behind my back. I really had no idea that I was even nominated, yet and we processed the whole class. I mean, we knew who was going in that year, and then I guess it would have been in December sometime. we typically process the class in October or before, and make the selections, and then work through it. And we don't start notifying people. We start whispering in their ear in December or January so they can start making plans for who they want to bring to the trade show in March to be inducted, right? You might want to bring your whole family. You might not want to bring anybody, whatever, your choice. So we start whispering that. And Pete Gustafson calls me into his office one day when I'm in Chicago and says, boy, we have to have a conversation. I went, oh, shit, what did I do now? You know, I've been in hot water over my life several different times. What did I do now? And he says, you better sit down. So I sit down in his office, and he breaks the news to me that I've been inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I was dumbfounded, Randy. How could that process have happened without me being aware that my committee was considering, that my committee had lost their mind in my mind and was considering putting me into that group? You know, I've given a lot of time to the charities of our industry, and I've given a lot of time in association work. I did serve 6 years on AMOA's board too, by the way. But that's giving back. To me, I do that because again, I started with from very modest means, and this industry has given me an opportunity, given my family an opportunity to have, you know, make a very nice living and live a very nice lifestyle, to spend a third of the year on a cruise ship. And the only way I know to be thankful and give back to that is to volunteer my time to be sure that the industry protects itself and the industry promotes itself and nurtures itself in all the right ways. See the threats, help navigate through them, and thus, you know, work 3, 4. You've been an AMOA president, Randy. You know what it is. It takes time. It takes dedication. It takes focus, and it's not always at convenient times. Sometimes you are called into. There's a lot of very pleasant things that go with it, but sometimes you're called into some unpleasant situations, and it's part of the game. You got to do it.
Well, I love the way you explain that in a very humble way. I think you know, you're actually understated, because you're the poster child for people that started from, as you say, you know, not a person of means, and you created your own path of success through hard work and innovation and strategic decisions. And good for you. Good for you. I love stories like this and stories like yours, because they're the backbone of this industry. You know, that's just where we're entrepreneurs, we're family-owned businesses, and that's where the best stories come from.
It was a very nice day for sure. You know, I think we're an industry of mavericks, and I may be as stubborn as any of them. I'm one of the more stubborn mavericks, because I just don't take failure as an option. And that certainly doesn't mean that we didn't make mistakes, because, oh Lord, we did. You know, we did things wrong and had to go back and fix them and whatever. But when you realize you've made a mistake, go back and fix it. The best loss is the first loss. Go figure it out and undo what you did or redo what you had to do, and look people in the eyes. And if you've actually hurt somebody and how you were doing it, apologize and go on. That's all you can do.
Yeah, great point. Hey, they tell me I go on too long on these, but I get on these podcasts and the stories are just good, and I could just go on and on for a while. But hey, you can thank your friend Dan Sunday for this reminder to me. At the trade shows, you and Bev used to dress up in some crazy costumes. Why'd you stop doing that?
I guess I grew up. So we had 3-day trade shows back then. And after every trade show, the Game Exchange would hold a open house, our own regional show, so to speak, right? And at that time, there were probably 150 or 200 operators in Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, Western Nebraska. And of those, maybe 20 would go to the trade show and 180 would not. So we bring in what we thought was the best of the equipment. The factories would come support that. And we would typically do that 2 weeks or 3 weeks after the trade show. We'd open our showroom. Oh, our showroom's always open, but we would decorate our showroom and we would invite everybody in. We would serve them a meal, some cocktails, and have some fun. We decided one day before that, Bev and I were out before the trade show and we're having a few glasses of champagne and sometimes do our best thinking just a little bit tipsy. And said, we need to theme these parties. So we need to just to create more excitement, to create a more reason for people to come, to make it more fun. So, we did one party under the big top, which was a circus tent thing that we actually put up inside our building and had a redemption center and did all of that. We did an open house in Quarters We Trust because everybody made a living a quarter at a time. And as the themes evolved, we created an invitation that we used to invite customers, but we also took that and made a formal version of that invitation and handed them out at the trade show in our meetings with the different factories. So I would schedule all of our meetings on the middle day of the trade show, and I would hand out the invitations. Well, it only seemed appropriate to dress in costume to support the theme. So I would put on a costume. We would go to our business meetings and invite people to our open house. And it started pretty simple, but it just kept developing and developing. And one day I'm dressed as Harvey the Rabbit, and I've got a big head on, rabbit's head, and I mean, full costume. You only know it's me because who else would be handing out invitations and be in this meeting? But you can't see my face. It was a full thing, full head. And I remember sitting in a meeting with the Stern folks, and Gary Stern is sitting across from the table and looks at me, and he's trying to go over numbers of what our performance was last year and what our goals are. And he finally looks at me and goes, "God damn it, take that head off. I am not having a business meeting in this way." So, okay, fine. So then I started taking part of it off and doing that. But we would walk the trade show literally the whole day. One year we were the Blues Brothers, and my brother was in the business at that time. Mike's a CPA and was my partner for, 5 or 6 years. We are in Nashville at the Grand Opryland Hotel, which is a very sprawling hotel, and the rooms are miles from the convention floor. But we dressed up as the Blues Brothers, and we're walking those halls towards the trade show floor. And my brother's a little bigger than I am, but it looked like we were the Blues Brothers. I mean, you saw people stop, stare, point. "Oh my God, go talk to them. That's really the Blues Brothers," blah, 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 as you go through this thing. So I haven't worn costumes now in maybe 15 years, I guess it's been, maybe longer. And mostly because the industry rolls up and there's no longer 150 people to invite to an open house. So we'll still do some spotlight shows and do those kind of things, but you're going to get 30 people. You're not going to have a big blow up party of 200 people. There's just not that many. Yeah. Still, independent. There's fewer bigger customers basically at this point. So we stopped doing that. But when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, just to tie this all back together, everybody else in my class was dressed up in a suit and tie. George Smith was there. George Petro was there. And I decided that I'm going to wear the Harvey head when I walk out of the blue room onto the stage. So I have this head sitting next to me in the room that we're all waiting to be announced. And everybody looks over and goes, "You're not really going to do that, are you?" I go, "Oh, yes. Oh, yes." So Pete Gustafson did not know I was doing that, and he MCs this whole thing. So I walk out and I'm being escorted because there's some stairs. They want to be very careful that I don't fall on my butt. But I'm getting help getting up the stairs, and Pete's talking an introduction to me, looking at his paper and looking out at the audience, and the whole audience just starts going, "What is going on?" There's all this noise all of a sudden. So Pete turns around and looks at me and just starts laughing. And then he turns to everybody and goes, "Well, I'm just going to say, if you know, you know. If you weren't around 10 or 12, 15 years ago, you probably don't understand this. But for those of you of us that have been, you know." So,
If you know, you know. That's good
right.
stuff. Well, Rich, thank you for taking the time to visit.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
With this, you are the exact reason we started doing this with Eddie and Key at RePlay, because you're a legend in the industry. You've been doing it a long time. You made a difference. You've impacted people all the way along, and just be able to capture the stories and tell it in this form. These are my favorite times every month. You get to sit down with people like you that have done some things. Is there anything that I should have addressed that I didn't, or anything you want to share?
No, I think you hit it. I just encourage everybody that's listening to this to support our industry. Make sure you volunteer some of your time to give back. Support the charities that both AAMA and AMOA raise money for. They're for very, very good causes. They both support kids and families in one form or another. And I think everybody knows we make our living off of families and kids. So why should we not give back to some that need more help, and share our successes and do what we can. I'm actually incredibly proud of what both associations do on the charity side of it. And it's probably the most fun I have is doing that, for sure. But I also want to thank you for doing this. I think I've listened to your podcasts. I think they're insightful. I'm sure I know every single one of those people that you interviewed, but you learned something you didn't know about those people during that interview. And it is special seeing it and hearing it from their own mouths, their own stories. And you lead people through it very nicely. So thank you for doing it.
Well, it's the highlight of, it's the favorite thing I do. And because, to your point, I actually do a little bit of preparation so I can at least ask the right questions. You and I know each other. We don't we're not close friends, so I had to do a little research here, and so I always learn. Like, I always learn a lot about the people that I'm talking to, and I always learn things I never knew. Always learn things I knew, as I did today. So thank you for that.
Well, you do need to stop by the only 11,700 square foot showroom in our industry at some point.
Let's put this on the record, and that in my 2026, I will come to your office and we will have lunch. That if I don't do that, I won't do anything. But
I enjoy seeing you on airplanes and at trade shows, but it'd be nice to see you in Denver.
That's always funny. I'm coming down. All right, Rich. Thank you very much, sir. Have a great day there in Bora Bora. And this is the first. We've never done a cruise ship podcast, but thanks for working it out. And hey, you and Bev have a wonderful trip.
All right, Randy. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Be well. Yep.
Game over.